Hey guys, it's Bellamy here from Midnight Suns, and this is my in-depth review of Transformers Rise of the Beasts. So a few days ago, I actually went for the Singapore world premiere of the movie. It's actually, according to them, it's the first place that they've ever shown the movie to any crowd. Yeah, and it was a ton of fun. I actually recorded a vlog about that whole experience. If you are interested, you can go check out that video on my channel. But it's been a few days since then, and I've had some time to gather my thoughts on the movie. So this is gonna be the full-fledged review for the movie, but I will try not to give any spoilers away because the movie is still over a week away and I don't want to ruin the movie viewing experience for anybody. So this review will be as spoiler-free as possible. But without further ado, this is my review of Transformers Rise of the Beasts. So first, let's talk about the story. So I'm happy to announce that, minor spoiler alert, but I'm happy to announce that there is no unnecessary teenage romance subplot in this movie. Yes, a Transformers movie without an unnecessary teenage romance subplot. You heard that right, guys. The story in this movie is very fast-paced, and the robots actually get a lot of time to shine in this movie. So I know in the previous Transformers movies, for the most of them, people usually complain that like the humans felt like the main characters and the robots were kind of afterthoughts. But in this movie, I'm happy to announce that the robots definitely felt like main characters as well. And don't get me wrong, the human characters are still important in this movie, but the Autobots especially felt like they were equally as important as the humans. But that being said, some fan favorite Autobots and Maximus kind of don't really get a chance to show much personality in this movie because they don't really do much other than a lot of fighting. And yeah, this movie is really filled with a lot of fighting. So if you really like to see big robots fight, then this movie will not disappoint you. But yeah, apart from the half of the robots who were given nothing to do in the movie other than fight, the other half, especially like Optimus Prime, he has so much character development in this movie that I think the amount of character development he has in this movie is more than the combination of all the character development, if any, he even had in all the previous Transformers movies combined. And I'm referring to the live-action Transformers movies, not the animated ones. I will say though that the story in this movie doesn't quite capture the emotional heights of Bumblebee, the 2018 Bumblebee movie. That movie really felt like it had a very personal story, but this movie is really an action blockbuster. There is a very human element in it, and there's a lot of heart in the movie, but definitely not on the level of the Bumblebee movie. You do get the sense that the humans and the robots all kind of have characters and personalities and story developments that basically only happen just so that the characters can go from one big action scene to the next. Like, it really feels like the whole movie was just crafted around the action scenes sometimes. But that's not necessarily a completely bad thing because the action scenes were really good. Like, all the Optimus Prime vs Scourge fight scenes were amazing. And I will also say I actually do like the human characters this time around. Like the main character Noah, without giving any spoilers, but he has a very good motivation throughout the movie, and even though he makes some pretty bad decisions throughout the movie, you kind of understand why he does it. Like, his character definitely has good motivation. He doesn't really act out of character. So everything that he does in the movie, you can kind of understand it and you can kind of root for it even though you might not necessarily agree with what he does. And yeah, I think the human characters in this movie were really likable, especially Noah, who was played by Anthony Ramos. His character is easily my favorite in the whole movie. But that's just for the humans. When it comes to the entire movie, I think Optimus Prime is easily my favorite character because of all the character development he gets to do in this movie. And I will also say this movie is very kid-friendly. The story is not complex or deep in any shape or form. It's just a very simple action movie story from beginning to end, and there were a lot of kids in the cinema when I watched it, and they all follow along just fine. So if you are thinking of bringing your kids to watch this movie, I think you can go ahead and do it. Like, there's no reason why the kids wouldn't enjoy it. There aren't any overly adult themes in the movie, so apart from a couple of jokes, but they weren't really like super sexual or anything. So kids would definitely enjoy this movie. And yeah, it wasn't like overly violent or anything either. If you just go in expecting a summer blockbuster film story, you won't be disappointed at all. And now let's talk about the performances. I think all the human characters in particular in this movie were a huge upgrade from many of the previous Transformers movies. Like, there weren't any unnecessarily annoying characters in this movie. Like the main character, Noah, who was played by Anthony Ramos, his character is kind of a screw-up, but not to the point that he's unlikable. Like, he's a screw-up, but you kind of understand his motivations, and like I said, I won't spoil anything, but even though he's a screw-up and he continues to screw up during the movie, you can kind of understand why he screws up. And I think he's easily one of the best main characters in any of the live-action Transformers movies. His character has a little brother in the movie, and I won't give anything away, but I just felt that the two of them had a very good special connection, and it just felt very real to me. As for the voice performances, Pete Davidson as Mirage is a real standout in this movie. Like, almost all of the laughs that happened throughout the movie all came from lines that were delivered by him. So yeah, he's really funny in this movie. Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime is great as always, and Michelle Yeoh as Airazor is also really good in this movie. Like, I think she was pretty much treated like the second in command of the Maximus, Airazor that is. Yeah, and during the movie premiere, the world premiere, they actually, before the movie started, they actually played this video where they introduced all the Maximus, and they actually chose to have Michelle Yeoh, who was voicing Airazor, to give the introduction. So she was the one narrating all the names of the Transformers and their roles on the team. And I think that says something, because even though Ron Perlman, who was voicing Optimus Primer, even though he's the actual leader of the Maximus, they still chose to have Michelle Yeoh, who was voicing Airazor, give the introduction instead. And Airazor is a very important character in the story. Like, apart from Optimus Primer, she's easily the most important Maxima on the whole team. And now let's talk about the villain. So the main villain, Scourge, is voiced by Peter Dinklage, who you might know from Game of Thrones. I think he does a fantastic job as Scourge in this movie. Like, Scourge is presented as this super terrifying villain. Like, I'm not gonna spoil. I mean, okay, this might be a little spoiler, but basically throughout the entire movie, Scourge is just like leaps and bounds above all his opponents. He just destroys everybody in his path. And his character is just so domineering and so powerful, so terrifying. And Peter Dinklage voicing him was really good, and it really added to his whole vibe. But I will admit that Scourge is kind of a one-dimensional villain. Like, all he ever does in the movie is just destroy things, and like, you don't really get to understand his motivation behind becoming a servant of Unicron, other than that he just seeks more power and Unicron gives him power. And so he's just an evil guy serving an even more evil guy. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, because this movie is already over 2 hours long, and I guess if they made his character more complex, it might increase the runtime of the movie. And I actually thought the current runtime of the movie was just perfect the way it is. Like, it wasn't too long or too short at all. It just felt right. And even though he's kind of one-dimensional, I still think he's so badass that I still like him a lot. And he's so cool and evil, and I'm sure kids who like bad guys like me when I was a kid, they will definitely love him. And I will also just say, even though the bad guys in this movie had pretty non-existent character development, I think the good guys having such great character development, like I mentioned before, kind of makes up for it. Could the heroes and villains both have equally good character development? Yes, but like I said, the movie was already 2 hours long, and you know, I'm sure you guys know that Transformers movies are usually targeted at kids, so I think, judging from the reaction from all the kids in the cinema, I think this movie really connected with them and they really enjoyed it like crazy. And time passes so fast when you're watching this movie, like you almost never ever feel bored at all. But I will say, if you're an adult, and especially if you're a Beast Wars fan, I think you might be disappointed that some of the Maximus have zero character development in this movie and pretty much no personality, apart from just being cool in battles and going around destroying Terracons and Unicron's minions. So yeah, if you're an adult Beast Wars fan, maybe temper your expectations and don't expect too much from this movie when it comes to the characters. Now let's talk about the visuals in this film. Like, the CGI in this movie is just fantastic. Everything just looks great. Nothing looked out of place at all. I didn't spot a single moment in the movie where it felt like bad CGI. And I think we all know that people have been complaining about the quality of CGI in recent Hollywood movies. But I think just rest assured, the CGI in this movie, to me at least, just looks great. Like I don't have any complaints about the CGI in this movie at all. The visual effects just looks fantastic. And I didn't time it, but it felt to me like the Transformers in this movie had way more screen time than in any of the previous movies. Like many of the Transformers have actual character presence in the movie this time around, except for a sad few who just felt like they were just there for the action scenes. But yeah, if you're somebody who complained about the previous Transformers movies because you felt there were too many humans and not enough robots, well, this movie has enough robots, trust me. I think you're gonna be very happy with just how much Transformers there actually are in this movie. And the CGI being great is so important because if you're looking at Transformers from start to end, it's important that they look good, and they definitely do in this movie. Now, I am unashamedly a huge fan of the original 2007 Michael Bay Transformers movie, but even I have to admit that sometimes in those action scenes in that movie, you can't really see the action very well. But in this movie, I am happy to say the action is very clear. Like, there aren't any extreme cutaways or camera movements that make the action obscured in any shape or form. Like, you can actually see the robots fighting clearly in this movie. And the action choreography is great also. Like, all the fight scenes with Optimus Prime and Scourge are easily, for me, the highlights of the movie. The cinematography is great as well. All the locations they chose to shoot this movie all look really beautiful. And you know, the whole movie is just a great, fantastic visual spectacle, and I really look forward to watching the movie again when it comes out in cinemas. And now let's talk about the sound. I think all the Transformers live action movies have actually had really great sound design. Like all the sound effects for all the Transformers when they transform, when they use their futuristic weaponry, everything just sounds great. And this movie is no different. I think I particularly love the Maximus when they transform into their beast forms, right? When they let out their roars or like their screeches and all those sounds, like they just sound fantastic. The soundtracks from the old Michael Bay movies are great, and I just love how they use some of those more iconic tracks in this movie, especially towards the end of the movie. And they also brought back the original composer who made those soundtracks, Steve Jablonsky. He actually composed the music for this movie as well, and the music in this movie is great. But alright, it is now time for me to give this movie a final score. I am giving Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Well, if you've seen my Out of the Theatre review, you know what my score is gonna be, it hasn't changed. I am giving Transformers Rise of the Beasts a great 8 out of 10. This is easily my top 3 favorite live-action Transformers movies of all time. My favorite would probably still be the 2007 Michael Bay Transformers movie because maybe that's just the first Transformers movie I saw growing up. And that movie just holds a very special place in my heart. But this movie and the 2018 Bumblebee movie are easily my number 2 and 3. I can't decide if I like this or Bumblebee more, but for now, I'll just say I like them both equally and they are my number 2 and 3. Like I said before, there is no unnecessary teenage human romance subplot in this movie, and it felt like the people who created this movie really cared about the Transformers. Like some of the previous movies felt like human stories with Transformers in it, but this movie felt more like a Transformers story with humans in it. There's a lot of heart in this movie, just like the 2018 Bumblebee movie, so I think fans of the live-action Transformers franchise will be very happy with that. I cannot stress this enough, I think the action scenes in this movie are really great, especially the Optimus Prime vs Scourge fight scenes. I can't wait to rewatch those. And all the callbacks to the previous Michael Bay Transformers movies through the soundtrack were great as well. This is a kid-friendly movie, and I could tell that all the kids who were watching this movie with me in the theatre were just having the time of their lives and cheering and really loving the movie. And I guess that's one good thing about the movie's narrative not being deep or complex at all, because the kids could just follow from start to end without any issue and just really enjoy the movie. So if you're thinking of bringing your kids or your nieces or your nephews to watch this movie, go ahead and do it. I would highly recommend that because I think they'll have a great blast watching this movie. And I really hope this movie does well so we get a sequel. It will be so sad if we finally got the great Transformers movie that we wanted with great action and good characters, and if it never gets a sequel, yeah, that would really just break my heart. But yeah, that is my review for Transformers Rise of the Beasts. If you are considering watching this movie, I would strongly recommend not reading any spoilers before watching this movie because there are some pretty big surprises that happen in the movie, and I think it's best if you don't get spoiled. And also, don't go and read all those crazy fan theories about the movie because that will just set you up for disappointment. Like I said, this is a very, very simple movie about good guys fighting bad guys. So yeah, avoid all those crazy fan theories and just go in expecting a good, clean, simple, fun, summer action blockbuster film. Just expect to see big robots fighting one another, and you will definitely enjoy the movie, and you might also be pleasantly surprised at how much heart the movie has. And that's all for this movie review, guys. If you have any non-spoiler related questions about this movie, feel free to go down into the comments below and ask away. I will try my best to answer as many questions as I can, but if I cannot respond to the questions without providing spoilers, then please understand why I'm not responding, because I really don't want to spoil the movie experience for anybody. But anyway, we are only slightly over a week away from the official release of the movie, so if you have any questions that I can't answer, they will be answered when you watch the movie in cinema, so just hang on to them. And I really hope you go and watch this movie in cinemas, because if any Transformers movie deserves to do well, this one does. If you haven't already subscribed, please do consider subscribing. We are just a very small channel, and every subscription will help us transform into a bigger channel. As always, stay gold everybody, and transform and roll out. Bye guys.